5 minutes, and we'll come to talk about missing data. Hi everyone, thank you for coming, Python for data science. So we'll continue today. So today we'll talk about okay. We'll talk about data munging, and we'll cover some concepts today, important concepts. All right, I mean, just to refresh your memory that we were talking about data frames. So data frame is basically, kind of table. All right. It has rows and columns, all right? And each column we call a series, okay? And the table have like heading, okay? And you're gonna have index for the rows, right? We said the index could be like numbers, or it could be one of the columns. Later on in today's lecture, we'll see how to make a date as the index for the rows. Right? We learned, how to subset the rows, how to subset the columns, how to get conditional data from the data frame. Then we said one of the problems in the big data sets or the data frames that we have non values, okay, which has no values. And this will affect your operation depending on what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to calculate the average, the mean, or the mode, or any statistical value, and you have missing values, you have to do something about it. So we spoke about different techniques last time, how to handle that. So today we'll talk about data types. And so data types determine what can and cannot be done to the variable. Okay. For example, when you have a numeric data, you could do a bunch of things. If you have a column or a row that has numeric data, you could like add, subtract, you could do some statistical values. But if you have, for example, strings, okay, which we call it in Panda, what we call the strings in Panda? Object. We call it object. Then when you try to concatenate or you try to add two strings, it will be concatenated, right? It will be added together. So it depends on the type of the data, you have determined the operations you do. So if we go back, if you import Panda and Seaborn, where we can download many different types of data, let's load the tips data. All right. So if you print the types in the tips, okay? So how many types? The total bill, which is float and 64-bit. Tip is a float, 64-bit. Sex is a category, which is like a string, Smoker is another category. Day is a category, because what days will be? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's not a numeric. And time, it will be a category. Later on, we will see how to convert time from the category or from object or from text to date time object. And the size is integer 64. And by the way, 64 is the size of them. Okay, so, and the data type is an object of, so what are these in here? Variables. Means? The table's headings, right? The table's headings. So we have this database. How many columns it has? How many series it has? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It has 7. All right. So the data type that is stored in a column will govern which kind of functions that you could do, what kind of calculations you're gonna do. The two types of conversions are converting to string objects. So you have a number, a numeric, you convert it to a string for a reason, or converting to a numeric values. All right. So usually, like when you have a file that has, for example, a column called ages. It has the ages, for example. What numbers you have? What we have in the ages? 50, 15, 60, 70, 80, 11, right? Ages. How is it saved in your data set, in your file? As a text. When it's loaded by default, it will be loaded as what? As a text. And if it's a text, okay, you cannot do average, for example. Why? Because it's an object. It's not integer. It's not a float. So you have to do something about it. What is the something they're gonna do? What? What is something you're gonna do?
Convert.
Convert. So the convert. So we're gonna see how to convert, right? All right.
Professor, but when you have like a database, you can have numeric values there as well, right?
You could what?
You can have numeric values in the tables already, right?
Sure.
But in this case in particular, it came as a text.
Because it's coming from a text file, and by default it will load it as, usually it will load it as a text. We call it object, string, right? And before you start, all you have to do what? All you have to do when you load your data, what you have to do? Tips, data types, okay? Just get the information. If it was loaded as a numeric, okay, you're good. You don't have to worry about it, right? All right. All right. Convert it to string objects. All right. So to convert values into strings, we use as type method. So there's a type called as type method on the column. So as type takes a parameter, which is the data type, that will be the new data type of the column. So look in here. Okay. So we have in here, I'm creating a new column. So there is a data frame called tabs. I'm adding a column to it, which is sex as a string, and where I'm getting it from, tabs from the sex, and as a type, I'm saving it as string. So now when I print tabs data types, the new one, which is sex string, came in here, was added, and it's as an object.
So if it's not already there, you can add it.
It was, I copied the one, it's already here in sex, what it is in sex in here.
Oh, yeah.
It's a category. So I need to convert it from category to object. So I added a column for demonstration purposes, okay? And I made it what? How did I make an object? Using a function given, which is as type string. Okay? Could I say as type integer? Could I? I could.
Not for that example.
Okay, I could, but what will give me?
Never.
Error. Why? Because the values will not be integers. All right? So, okay, the Python has built-in types, which is str, string, float, integer, complex, and Boolean types, and bool types. These are the types. And also, any other types come from NumPy. Remember what we said, that pandas came from NumPy. So it's like kind of specialized NumPy, right? Right? So NumPy, any types from the NumPy. Clear? So what we did in here? Conversion. Conversion from category to object. Convert it to numeric values. Okay, the as type method is a generic function that can be used to convert any column in the data frame to another type, from to. All right? All right, so in here, for example, total bill. What is total bill? Usually is it object? It's usually like number, right? Float, right? All right, so I'm creating another column called total bill, which is coming from total bill, but I'm changing it to string. So when you go in here, total bill, what I'm doing in here, I'm changing the total bill to what? From object, from category to, from what was it? Total bill was float, 64. I'm changing it to what? To object, using as type. Very simple, right? I could convert it back. Total bill, tips as total bill, as type, I'm changing it back to float. Yes?
So as you convert it, because I understand you mentioned that you create a new.
I did not,
a new-
because remember in here I kept it the same title.
Okay.
So it's just replaced it.
Just replace it.
Replaced it. If in the previous one in here, I changed it. So sax string came from sax. So we have the sax and we have the sax string. All right. Then we could have changed to numeric. When converting variables into numeric values, like integer or float, you can use it for many things that you could, many statistics operations, for example. Okay. Since each column in the data frame has to have the same data type, remember we said that each column has to have the same data type. Sometimes we have a problem that we have nan, or not defined value, nan, okay, none. So for example, instead of the nan value that represents a missing value in pandas, a numeric column might use missing or null or whatever that could be there. So let's take an example. So subset the tips data. So you have tips dot sub. You're looking for the missing data, and I'm looking for the top records. All right. So from the tips data frame, I'm creating what? Another data frame. I'm calling it tips underscore sub underscore miss, and it has how many lines? 10 lines only. So from a huge data frame, I'm creating a small data frame. Then assign some missing values. So what I said in here, tips, for this one, tips that sub miss, location 1, 3, and 5. So row 1, which is what? Row number 2, because we're counting from 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Okay, in the total bill, just give it missing, make it missing, change the value to missing. Whatever value there, remove and put the word missing. So you see in here, this is 1, 3, 5, and whatever 7, should be 8. What? 1. And okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay. So 1, 3, because it's the index, right? 1 and 3. So it was made what? Missing values. So I changed them to missing. And then when you look at the data types, you will see that the total bill column is now string object. Why is it string object? Because when you have digits and you have strings, the whole thing will become, it has to be one type. All right? So this cannot be a float. Cannot be a float, but this cannot be a numeric, but could be a string. So the whole thing will become a string. You see where is the idea in here? Think about loading this data set from a file, creating a data frame. So the engine of the data frame, the brain of the data frame, had to determine what is the type of the column. What is the type of the column? All right. I want to go back to what I said last time. Why we are learning all of this? Okay, because we're gonna deal in data science, in machine learning, in deep learning. You're gonna have something called data sets, which is text files. Okay. And before you do any operations, you have to load them to where? In your memory as a data frame. So depending on how clear is the data collected in that file, you might have a lot of problems. So you have to understand how to deal with it. Before you start doing your machine learning and training, deep learning, and all of that, data science, to do the graphs we did last time, you have to fix all of these errors. So sometimes you need to normalize your data, you have to do conversion from one to another, etc., etc. Okay? All right. So there's, when you look at the data types, you will see that the total bill is becoming like an object. To numeric has a parameter called errors that govern what happens when the function encounters a value that is unable to convert. So what we do with it. So by default, if it encounters like a data cannot do anything with it, it will raise an error. By the default, it will raise an error. There is other options for you. So it could raise it by default, raise an error, or coerce. It will return NaN for the values, convert the data values. So what we are trying to do for the dummy data frame we created with the missing values, when I load it, okay, it depends on how I load it. It could be convert. It could give you an error, refuse to be loaded. It could convert the elements that cannot deal with it to NaN, or it could be ignored. It could be ignored. Let's take example. So look in here. So for the data frame, I created from two numeric. Okay, I'm creating a data frame, total bill. The data frame, two numeric. Okay, two numeric. Okay, what I'm doing, I'm saying if there is an error, ignore. So when I print this sub data frame I created, all right, okay. So when there is in here the missing and all that did not do anything. The reason for that, I said ignore the errors. All right. So it will be an object, did not change because it has the data. If I use, for example, coerce, okay, and here again coerce. So what does it do, coerce? Let me go back in here where I stated in here coerce. What does it do? It will return NaN value, the values that cannot convert to numeric. Okay, it will give you a NaN value. So in here, what we'll do is coerce. Okay, so what happened to the missing? NaN. Remember we converted 4 values to missing. When I load them now, it's converted to NaN. Okay, and the total bill is float 64. So in the column that has none, it could be a numeric. It's not a known value. All right. The two numeric function has another parameter called downcast, which allow you to change the numeric data type to a smaller possible. So when you say integer 64, what does it mean, integer 64? That means the value is saved in 64 variable, right? 64 bits. Okay, variable. What if I need it to be 32, smaller, or 16? So we could use two numericals. So you could change it to integer, sign, and float. Let's take example. There's example. So two numeric, okay, total, errors, coerce, and downcast to a float. Downcast to a float. That's float 64 will be 32. So now if I do the types, print, and here it became float 32. So what did I do in here? Down. Downsize. Why you need to downsize? Save the space in the memory. If you don't have big values, that's the range that you need to put down size, right? Same thing with the integer, you could do downside. Categorical data, which is a category. Usually they are object, okay? So it can be memory and speed efficient to store data in this manner. So let's take example, converting category. So sex, what is sex? Is a category that has 2 values, which is male or female, right? That's the category. So types of sex equals types of sex as type string that we convert it to an object. If I type info, it was converted to an object, from category to an object. in here what we do, okay, we convert back the sets as a category. So when you go to sets in here, it change back to category. So it's a very easy to change from numeric to object to category and vice versa. Not as easy, but you could do many things. You could do many things. Manipulating categorical data, and here for example, there is a lot of categorical API that you could use. Take a look at them. Then we go to strings and text data, strings and data. Okay, big chunk, like 80%, 90% of the data we have in what format? String, right? String. So always we have to have the tools and the talent to deal with strings, right? So most data in the world are text or strings. In Python, a string is a series of characters. That's what is a string. They are created by a set of opening. You know how to create a string, right? We don't have to go back to this basic things. All right. So, and we know, how we index. We learned how to index. So, for example, if I have the string grail, so it starts from 0 up to 4, although we have 5, right? Or it could have like with a minus, so it starts from -5 to -1. And we have learned how to subset strings. Same thing, another example in here. Okay? So print word of 0, which is 0 will give you UG. I mean, subsetting, we know how to do subsetting, you don't have to go. And you know how to subset, for example, with the minus value. So in here it would be -7 to -1. Where is -7? It will print for you -7 in here. To where?
To the end.
To where?
H.
If you're gonna print H, guys, you have a midterm next week, you have final next week. This is going to print. So we said the first element is inclusive and the last element is not. All right? So it's gonna print from where? It's gonna print S, C, R, A, T, C only. Because it does not include the last element, right? Yes.
Just confirm the final is 2 weeks, right?
I'm trying to scare you, that's all.
Yeah, don't do that.
All right. All right. Okay. So that's the subnetting. Just to refresh your memory about the subnetting. Inclusive, not so in here. It will have from 0, 1, 2. The last one is not inclusive, right? So you could take a look at that. When we say print cent -1, what does it do?
From the last.
The last letter.
The last one. That's the only way you could print the last one. -1. Why? Because, -1, it's from. The first one is from, right? -1, okay. So getting the last the character in a string, you could use index -1. Or you could do the length. So if you have like 7 elements, okay, the elements will range from where? 0 to 6. If you need to print the last one, what should you do?
-1.
Print from 0 to 7. What is 7? It's the length of the string, right? You know all of this already, right? Okay. All right. So getting the last character as a string. So basically what you do, you get the length of the string, print. The length is 9. So if you need to print all of to the end 2 to 9, which is one more than the index will print. So slicing, a very common task is to slice values from beginning to the end. I think we covered that before, so I don't want to go over it. All right. All right. Do you remember the increment in the slicing? So every, for example, when you have 2 in the increment, that means every other. Every other.
Good question about that. So if you do the increment, it starts on, let's say I want to print from 0 to 6, it starts at 0, right?
0.
So 0, 2, 4.
Yes. So in here by default, if you don't put anything, what will print?
The entire.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't anything, that means you start from 0. If you don't put anything, that means
Goes to
the last index.
And then the last one is how many it's going to iterate or.
Yes. All right. These are the string methods that, you know, capitalize. What does capitalize do? Capitalize the first character of the string, count the number, start with, end with, find, substring, index, is alphabetic, is decimal, all right, and many other functions that are ready for you, all right. These are functions that are all ready for you to use, all right. And maybe there is more. These are examples for here. These examples. So let's pick one. So let's pick, for example, count number 2. So it's just a fresh one dot count you. So what I'm counting, the number of views in the string. How many? 2. Let's take one more. Okay. So coconut dot. This is the string. End with not. So what will give you true or false, right? It's true and so on and so forth, right? All right. Join. The join method takes a container and a list and returns a new string containing each element in the list. So for example, you have data 1, okay, M1, S1, U1, and then D2, M2, S2, U2, all right? There's a function called join. So if I join all of them, so join, I put them inside the list. I don't put them in the parentheses. I put the parentheses, and inside the parentheses I have a list of strings. List of strings. So this is a list of strings. So D1, M2, okay? So when I join them, okay, I have a space in here. That means join them with a space. So you see here 40 coming from D1. All right, 46 coming from M1. And keep the spaces between them. Why? Because it says use space to join all of these strings. If I need to have hyphen, we put a hyphen, join these strings, all right, and so on and so forth. So it's a very useful tool to deal with. Okay, so this method is also useful if you have a list of strings that you want to separate using your own delimiter, okay, delimiter, like tab or whatever. Okay. Split lines method is similar to the split method. It is typically used on strings that are multiple lines long and will return a list in which each element of the list is a line. So you have a list, you have a long string, multiple lines. I need to put each line in element in a list. So I'm creating a list of what? List of what? Lines. All right. So you have simple utility for you to use, which is split lines. So let's take a, and we have learned how to create a string with multiple lines, right? What we use? Triple quotes. So triple quote, one line, second, third, you know. So this is like a conversation. Guard what ridden on a horse. King Arthur, yes. Guard, you are using coconuts. King of, so conversation between the two. So if I print the multi-user, again it will be printed like multiple lines. So multi-split, multi-string split line. So you have This is the variable. This is the variable. What is this? What is this?
That's a string.
String. It has multiple lines. All right. So if I have the string splitted into lines, it will generate what for me? A list of lines. List of lines. How many elements in this line, in this list?
4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? 5, right? So if I print the list, I print it for you, the list. Print multi underscore string underscore split, which is a list. It's printed it inside square brackets, which shows it's a what? It's a list. All right? Okay. So in here, now I could subset. You could print the first line, the second line, the third line, fourth line, right? Think about data processing. You have a file that has like 2,000 lines. Okay? So you could add these 2,000 lines to where? To a list. So you'll have elements from 0 to 1,999, and you could subset them, right? So guard, multi-string, split. So in here, what I'm saying in here, this sentence, what I'm saying, print what?
Print
Every other line. Print every other line. So I'm interested what? In what guard says, not the what the guard. So guard, right? There's a few ways to just get the lines from the guard. One way would be to use the replace method. Also, there's another way. Okay. Okay. So you have the string replace guard with nothing. Guard, remove guard, and then split lines. All right. String formatting. All right. So formatting strings allow you to specify a generic template for a string and insert variables into the pattern. Like when you print. Okay, print. What usually you print? String, right? String. You need to format it the way it looks. So how you format it, right? And usually when you use print in your Python, the data is coming from where? Variables. And you put it inside other text, right? So there's three kinds of string formatting. You have to be familiar with one of them. Okay, usually people like, people came from a C word. They like the printf structure. Okay, C word. Okay, so people know how to program C, not C plus C. The printf statement and how you format it. That will be easier for many people. Some people like to have the new notions. Anyways, you could use whatever. So formatting strings allow you to specify a generic template for a string and insert variables into the pattern. So you have a pattern which has variables inside it. It can also handle various ways. Okay, string formatting. Okay, let's take an example. Okay, so there are many use cases for string formatting. Okay, so you have formatting character strings, formatting numbers, and there's also, this is the custom string formatting, and there's the C printf style. All right. Myself, I used to like the C printf style because I came from C word. This is maybe the third language I learned. I started with actually the fourth. I started with basic. Not Visual Basic, basic. So it's really basic. And then for a time, then I learned Pascal, and then I came to C, then C++, C#. So the format characters, for example, in here. So the variable flash1, okay, S is what? The pattern. So it's just up, and then here what do I have? 2 parentheses will substitute for something. So when I try to print it, what I do, S, where is S? The pattern, dot format, var. So it will print S. What is S? It's just a, and the first variable go to the first parenthesis. So var will be substituted in here. What's the value of var? Flash 1. So to the print is just a flash 1. Block in here, S for man, scratch. Scratch. Alright? So what is scratch in here? Another string. So it's just a scratch. In here what they put? A variable. So could they have a variable which would be substituted eventually, or could they have a string right away, a string right away.
And it doesn't matter what the type is. It'll
It's
convert it
text.
to a string automatically.
Exactly. And this could be integer.
Right.
It will print.
Like when you concatenate though, you have to put string for
Sure.
integer, right?
Yes.
So
But in
this
here-
it automatically.
Yeah, automatically, yes.